What is going on, everybody? Today we have the Master Duel, the new ban list coming starting on December 5th. We're going to talk a little bit about it because I'm actually quite sad. So as you can see here, we have we're not in Master Duel today. It's more of a discussion video because this is actually very annoying. They are limiting Dimension Shifter and Fairy Tale Snow and Psy-Framegear Gamma. Lightning Storm to be semi-limited, that's a little bit whatever. Trickstar, Lightstage, and Chronograph Sorcerer, it's kind of whatever, they're going to be unlimited now. And then we have Pot of Prosperity to be forbidden. This is actually really bad. If we take a look at the issue is the biggest issue is Dimension Shifter, in my personal opinion. Now, obviously, you guys know I might be a little bit biased considering the fact that I love TriixstaR. However, if we take a step back and think about it, Tenpai Dragon has been playing Dimension Shifter, and it doesn't make sense to nerf Dimension Shifter because of Tenpai Dragon, if that's the reasoning. Because honestly, there are so many more decks that borderline rely on Dimension Shifter than Tenpai. Tenpai can use it, yes, but they don't like it, they don't benefit from it. If we take a look at some of the lists, you can see here, the popularity isn't super high, 44th. It's not super high because it's so uncommon that people actually want to play Dimension Shifter in their decks. But then you look at the decks like underneath here. Ritual Beasts is a deck actually I just put together. They're nerfing it for Shifter. TriixstaR obviously here needs it. It's already bricky enough as it is. TriixstaR sometimes needs the extra turns to be able to, of the opponent not playing, to be able to get a chance. Flu, another one. Stun, we're not going to talk about. Exo Sister is also a well-known, shifter deck. It annoys me because it ruins the consistency of other decks just because of Tenpai, if you want to say it like that. In my opinion, at least it looks to me, because Tenpai uses it, therefore we go ahead and nerf Dimension Shifter, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The fact is, there are other decks that more need the Dimension Shifter, that directly benefit from the Dimension Shifter, to the point where, you can even see here, TCG, Dimension Shifter is at 3, OCG is at 2. Why should we be limited to 1? The problem is going to be, I don't know if it's worth playing Dimension Shifter in these decks anymore. I'll be honest, spoiler alert, you don't see it as often as you'd like to anyway. You a lot of the time will not see it because you're only allowed 2 in the first place. So having it is nice, but you only ever want to see it in your first hand, which means in theory, if you could run 3, of course you would. You want to see it as often as possible in your first hand in these decks that want to use it. If you're running 2, which I have been running for the longest time in all of my decks with TriixstaR, Flu, the ones that want to run it, you don't see it nearly often enough already, even at 2. And when you do see it after turn 1, it's a dead draw because your graveyard usually has something in it. So all in all, it's actually really, really rough for Tenpai Dragon, for Dimension Shifter to be down to 1, and it's almost to the point where you're more likely to brick on it than you are to see it in your starting hand. So in my personal opinion, I'm not sure if it's worth it anymore to run it, which is a bit sad. There are some decks that they need it, and if Tenpai Dragon is the reason why, I know a lot of people, I know I'm going to get hate for it, I know a lot of people really hate Dimension Shifter, think it's an unfair, broken card, etc. The fact is, the meta makes it good. That's just the facts. It stops the crazy link decks. It stops all the Tillaments can't play. There are certain cards or certain archetypes that heavily rely on graveyard stuff. Snake Eye Fire King, for example. If everything gets banished because of Shifter, you have to stop them from playing. If you yourself can OTK afterwards, that's, how people want to play into Shifter is up to them. The fact of the matter is, Dimension Shifter has and always will be a necessary evil in a meta that looks like we have. Don't hate Shifter, hate the meta. It's just that simple, because people don't want to play Shifter. I was actually talking in the Master Duel Discord earlier when I was talking about how actually these ban lists actually really hurt TriixstaR, which is obviously, you guys know, my favorite deck. which is already bricky enough as it is. They were like, oh yeah, but yeah, you know, screw Kashtira. They weren't exactly using those words, but they were like, you know, I hate Kashtira and all this. And it's like, but no, us Kashtira players also don't like Kashtira, but we have to play it because the meta is so rubbish as it is. Like, Kashtira helps on that. Ritual Beast, I don't know if it's going to be super affected by it. It loves to use it, but I don't think they don't have too much of a problem with Dimension Shifter. Like, they banish themselves anyway. They don't really have much of an issue. I can still play Kashtira without Dimension Shifter. It's just going to be a little bit more, you know, difficult. Same sort of thing goes for Fluanderies. The one thing I will say, and this is kind of why Dimension Shifter has been so good on top of being able to stop other decks playing, let's not forget it stops Maxi. Any cards that say send it to the graveyard, if you can't send it to the graveyard, it stops them. So Maxi, for example, unless your opponent directly chains Maxi immediately to your Dimension Shifter, they can't use it. And that's a fact. Like, during either opponent's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. If Dimension Shifter is in effect, Maxi is off the table. I can't remember if any of the other hand traps, is, yeah, send this card from your hand to the graveyard. So it stops draw. The only thing it doesn't stop is Ash, I believe, because it just says discard. Yeah, you can discard this card, so it doesn't matter where it goes. The point being is it not only helped to stop decks from playing sometimes if you needed that extra turn to actually get set up or something, but it, more importantly than that, it is a way to stop some of these obnoxious hand traps that we still have in Master Duel. So that's my opinion on at least Dimension Shifter. This was going to be number one because it's annoying as hell. I think it screws over way too many decks to make it worth not talking about first. Let's get into some of the other ones though. Fairy Tail Snow, thank God, it's been a long time coming. Fairy Tail Snow has been running rampant with Tillaments particularly. You can see there, Tillaments were running 3. Some of them only running 1 anyway. But, you know, Tillaments, I saw it a lot. Any of those Grass Chaos or whatever. There are a lot. Lightsworn, another one. It's been a long time coming. And I feel like it's finally here that we get at least limited to 1. So that's fine. I'm okay with that, obviously. Psy-Framegear Gamma is in a similar boat to Shifter. Psy-Framegear Gamma is kind of... If you now have an equal chance to draw Gamma or Driver, it basically becomes useless, in my personal opinion. It will still have its uses, of course, but this card already had the downside of you had to have 2 of this and a Driver in your hand. Not in your hand, 1 of these and a Driver either in your hand or in your graveyard, I believe. Yeah, from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So, again, it's like one of those things, and everybody who's ever played Psy-Framegear Gamma knows you'd never want to see Driver in your hand at any point. So, I don't know if Psy-Framegear Gamma is eventually killed off by this, essentially. I personally think, I don't run it very often anyway. I kind of hate the fact that you have to run 2 of this and a Driver. It's nice for generic's sake, if you want to say it like that, but I might be in the minority here, but I feel like Psy-Framegear Gamma is, in my opinion at least, dead for the time being, at least for now. We'll see how things go, but I'm not super in a situation where I'm like, I'm going to put this in decks from now on. Lightning Storm to be semi-limited is interesting. Obviously, Tenpai was running it a lot with their Go Second shenanigans. So Tenpai was running not very often more than 2, as you can see here. And let's not forget, Konami has all these numbers themselves. They can see these things. So Tenpai having 14% running 3, and there are much better, spells to use. If you control no face-up cards, activate one of these effects. You know what happens if they were running Psy-Framegear Gamma? In fact, we can prove it right here. 71% run 2. So there's a good strong chance that they might have something on the field, so they can't activate Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm had a condition, I guess, to put it in line with things like Reigeki, which is now essentially better than Lightning Storm. Having Reigeki, now you, instead of running the extra Lightning Storm, you run 2 Regekis, a Harpies, Feather Duster, and maybe Heavy Storm to sort of cover that. Because obviously Lightning Storm, the benefit is you can choose either or. Like you can go ahead and destroy all attack position monsters or all spell and traps. Having that option is very, very flexible. So maybe, I personally don't really use Lightning Storm that often, so I don't care that much about it. The cards of which to be lifted on the limited copies, Trickstar, Lightstage, and Chronograph, Sorcerer. Personally, I will not lie, I don't really know much. Trickstar, Lightstage, activated, you can add 1 Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand once per turn. So it's just a Trickstar card. Trickstars in general, I believe, were quite toxic to play against, but it's fun. I mean, it could be a fun deck to play. Essence and Floor of Ocean, Trickstar, yeah. 6. So at the moment, obviously, 2 were running in 60% because obviously you could only have 2. Now you can, of course, have 3. It looks like a sort of deck that wants to burn, by the sounds of it. Like, I am not sure. Either way, I'm sure the Trickstar people, the people who do play Trickstar, will be loving that. And Chronograph, Sorcerer. That's not it. So Chronograph, Sorcerer is a pendulum card. I'm not even going to get into that because honestly, I know nothing about pendulums at all. I'm so dead in the water when it comes to pendulums. So, yeah. Lastly, cards to be forbidden. Pot of Prosperity. Now, are you aware the amount of decks that run Pot of Prosperity? The amount of decks that run Pot of Prosperity. Look at this. Any deck that had some space in the extra deck had it. Tenpai Dragon had it. Voiceless Voice, you know, all these cards, it was integral. It was really integral for Kashtira being able to choose to banish the Infinitrack Goliath. So having it's generically good. Sometimes you don't have space in the extra deck to just randomly banish. You need to choose. Ritual Beast was running it. There was so many decks that run it because of the fact that it added just that tiny little bit of consistency. And Konami have said no, even though TCG and OCG says 1 each, which we've had until now, and even, spoiler alert, even when we've had it at 1, oftentimes you barely saw it. Here we are, down to 0. It's a really sad situation because a lot of decks can have 3 or 6 cards from their extra deck banished and get something. They can dig a little bit for something, but unfortunately not anymore, and we're gonna have to see what kind of comes from it. But it's a sad day. It's a consistency card that most people, a lot of decks, as you can see here, a lot of decks were running for a little bit of extra consistency, and we no longer have it. So we're gonna have to see about it. I'm not super sad about it. When I saw it, I was happy, of course, because even if they ashed, I could get Infinitrack Goliath banished, which meant I could use, if I still had full combo, I could get my Infinitrack Goliath on my Arise Heart. But at the moment, I didn't see it often enough. Funnily enough, I actually saw Pot of Extravagance, I think is the one. The other one. Yeah, I saw this more often, where it banished the random stuff, and nobody wants to play this. So, very few. At least Fluandereeze doesn't mind it, I guess, but many don't want to play this. So, in my opinion, that's kind of a little bit whatever, Pot of Prosperity. I like having it. I like having the access to it. I like having the possibility for it. But unfortunately, it's banned now. And we'll have to see what kind of things happen. So, moving forward, what do I expect to see? Well, I would be absolutely shocked if they leave Tenpai in the state that it's in the future. Like, my current thinking is quite literally, Tenpai Dragon is in the shop for, as of the recording date today, Friday, November 22nd, there is 13 days left where you can still pack Tenpai Dragon stuff in the shop. I'm thinking what they're gonna do when it's gone, when everybody has emptied their gems, emptied their whatever it is, you know, money into the game to get it, whatever it might be, when the pack is gone, either January's ban list or February, we're gonna see something. It would be very interesting to do it in February, because typically the cycle of meta changing stuff is usually, I believe Snake Eyes came out in February, and then October is the other date, the other month, I think, but I'm not entirely sure. Do you know what? Let me double check that before I talk too much. Like, if we look at Snake Eye when it came out, I believe it was literally last February. Yeah, released on February 7th, 2024. So Snake Eye came out. It's usually a meta changing thing from what I understood. This is me speaking from other people saying I haven't done all this research into it. I've heard people say that Master Duel release typically things in February that will be sort of meta defining. So I would be surprised if they waited until February to nerf this. It might be January instead. But anyway, if you take a look at some of this, Sangen Kaiman could easily be 2. It's one of their most important cards. Chandra is limited to 1 in the OCG, and TCG's at 3, so it's a bit whatever. I don't know if I would want to see Chandra at... spoiler alert, I have a Tenpai Dragon deck, so I don't know if I would want to see Chandra at 1. Maybe 2 would be fair, like limited to 2. But yeah, Pydra, no one's going to do anything about Pydra. Pydra is easy enough to sort of imperm or ash or whatever. Genroku might actually be something that's pretty, possible to get. I feel like I've seen a lot of people use it to like start the combos. Sangen Summoning is already at 2. OCG, TCG is at 1 in each. We'll have to see. Fadra, I don't think anything's going to happen to Fadra. Maxi, hopefully Maxi gets something happening to it. Like, even in the OCG, it's limited to 2. It would be nice to get, back to something like that. Other than that, I don't think there are many cards, actually Tenpai Dragon cards, that would be worth nerfing. It would be Kaiman, it would be Chandra, maybe Genroku, maybe. I don't see much else happening, personally. We'll have to see. Maybe they do something in the extra deck, Biden Dragon. Who knows? Anyway, beside the point, I think this ban list has been hit off the mark big time. I think it's hurting more decks than Tenpai than either Konami's realizing, or they're prepping for something. Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm extremely interested. I want to see what you guys think about this ban list. I know there are a lot of people over on the Discord that are unhappy. I'm unhappy. But until next time, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your duels. Bye-bye.